Добрий день, я вітаю всіх, хто
Good afternoon. Thanks everybody who joined us. Ukrainian Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. It's day 238 of full-scale invasion of Russia, and I want to thank all the workers of mass media who tell the truth about the heroic resistance of Ukrainian people. And now we will talk about the first 100 days of the work of the Human Rights Commissioner. We have Dmytro Lubinets with us. Hello, Mr. Dmytro. So what's your job now? What was done? What are the main challenges? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear representatives of mass media. Today I report for the first time about my work. For what I know, it's the first day of when a Human Rights Commissioner reports for the first 100 days of his work, and I want to say that with the help of my team, I was able to build the efficient system of renewal of human rights in Ukraine. So what we do, our team consists of 325 people. They're the employees of Kyiv office and representatives in the regions of Ukraine. My main goal is to reestablish the trust to the institution of Human Rights Commissioner, and to have the society understand that it's the efficient tool for monitoring and protection of the human rights in Ukraine. The organization of our office consists of 9 representatives of the Commissioner in the working areas, 24 representatives in the regions, the head of the Secretariat, first deputy, plus 3 deputies of the head of Secretariat, 21 structural unit. For me, a key issue is the constant communication with the civil society and civil sector. That's why we create the advisory board of the Commissioner, the advisory board of the preventive mechanism, the council of donors with the Commissioner office, and special boards with every representatives of the Commissioner. So every region will have a separate unit established with the Commissioner representative appointed. It's quite logical because to reestablish the human rights, to draw attention to the violation of someone's human rights, you don't have to force a person to go to Kyiv. This structure should exist in every region of Ukraine. So the key areas we work in is the appointment of the representatives in the area of security and defense. So this representative is authorized to renew the rights of the prisoners of war, their family members, their veterans, everybody who got involved in the warfare. Also the civilian hostages and their family members who are imprisoned by Russian Federation. Special attention paying to the personal communication with both prisoners of war and civil hostages after their liberation, and we're constantly in communication with the those imprisoned and liberated ones as to the rehabilitation, and we keep this in focus in our work. The representative of European integration, and we understand that Ukraine obtained the legal status of the candidate to join European Union, and now this office is dedicated to this job. I personally held 83 international cooperation meetings. I had a speech with the Commission of Human Rights in Europe, and I drew attention of everybody to the issue of the war crimes committed by the Russian Federation in Ukraine, and I am ready to comment. As a result of our job, our cooperation with the International Committee of Red Cross, upon the very first day of my appointment, I held a meeting with them, and I have a meeting with them, or either personal meetings or telephone talks with them on a weekly basis. And for the first time in 8 years, ICRC legally called it Russian-Ukrainian armed conflict as per the provisions of the international law. They previously used the notions of either conflict in Ukraine or crisis in Ukraine. So we keep not only drawing their attention, but also searching for new mechanism to enforce their mandate, because now, in our opinion, they don't exercise their mandate in full. Apart from international meetings with international organizations, we also have meetings with the deputies of European Parliament. It's a communication with the commissioners on human rights of the European states, and the communication with commissioners of human rights of other countries of the world. For example, we had a visit of the European Net of Commissioners of Human Rights in August this year. It was the first time when the European Organization Management visited our country. They had 3 days of communication with the people. They've seen with their own eyes the destruction left by Russian rockets and missiles. We had a dedicated trip to Irpin and Bucha so that they could raise that issue in international level after their visit to Ukraine. So we don't only say we demand the international organization to exercise active actions in regard of the human rights protection in Ukraine. And I have quite a critical attitude to so-called neutrality stance taken by a lot of international organizations. So in my opinion, they try to hide the Russian crimes behind this neutrality. We had 170 appeals as to the protection of personal human rights. We opened 14 cases. We processed 144 regulatory acts, completed 14 inspections, and issued 14 recommendations in that regard. Together with the Office of the President, we launched the online platform called Children of War, and in cooperation with the coordination headquarters, which comprise both representatives of local and central authorities, we returned around 100 Ukrainian children back to Ukraine who were previously deported to Russia. For me, it's an opportunity to involve the representatives as of national minorities in Ukraine and religious communities, the representatives of different civil organizations, including LGBTQ. We constantly demonstrate that we are ready to raise the issue of human rights protection of any category of Ukrainian population, no matter they refer themselves to. The representatives of the Commissioner on Social and Economic Rights. Within 100 days, we received 4,312 applications on social rights and 488 applications on economic rights. So it's our biggest department. In fact, it's a different working area. I won't stop here because we had a lot of online communication, the development of new regulations. We even work through new amendments to the existing laws. So the representative of the Commissioner of Social and Economic Rights, for example, we had the system problem regulated when Ukrainian pension fund changed the pension payments issues, which now can be realized through online platform. So these are the main areas where we have teams working. In my personal work, I start the practice of signing memorandums of cooperation with the government authorities. For me, so that everybody understands, the mandate of the Commissioner of Human Rights is the control function. When different ministries come to us saying, let's sign a memorandum, I explain to them that you have your area legislation and you work within that legislative framework. My function is control, and when we come across a situation when you fail to cover something in your job, we control it and we tell you about that. We have this exercise. We have this control function. We exercise. If there is a need arising to find a new mechanism to protect the human rights, we do this through creation of a working group, for example, who develops the amendments for the existing legislation. Also, I don't want to sign this memorandum just for the sake of signing. I analyze the existing signed memoranda, and we realized that only 15% of signed memoranda had any actual sense. So within the 100 days, I only signed one memorandum with the National University named after Taras Shevchenko, where we already showed the results of our work. It's the scientific inspection of amendments to the existing legislation, and we implemented the practice by the students of the National University of Taras Shevchenko in our institution. The representative of the commissioner in court authorities and in Constitutional Court on Ukraine. So we processed 641 applications of the citizens. For example, we sent a letter to the committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine as to the bringing into the compliance the response from the enforcement agencies from 276 hours. So we clearly understand where the violation is, and this is the problem that we mitigated already. The representative of the commissioner for the citizens affected by war. So this working area was established in view of the war of Ukraine, in war of Russia against Ukraine. We raised the issue of additional protection of people who lost everything in the temporarily occupied areas, their assets, their businesses, any real estate. In this area, we're looking for new opportunities for involvement of and raising additional help from international organizations and our international partners. Our key principles are openness, speed, and orientation to the citizen. So we appreciate all open and transparent cooperation with those international organizations who work in Ukraine now. And this is an initiative that I first tell about publicly. Our office, we propose that it becomes a hub for international and civil organizations where you can have your meetings, you can hold your events here. But now, under the conditions of the war, we've seen the situation when some civil organizations want to have a meeting. They want to meet their donors, for example, so that they want to, in that case, they need to find a place, find a venue, they need to find interpreters, equipment, and so on and so forth. We have all these. We have all the things in our hub. We have venues. We have interpreters for the case it's a meeting with an international donor. It's completely free. Please report to us. Please come to us with your request. Again, it's completely free. So we have to understand that the existing legislation on the Commissioner of Human Rights does not disclose, it does not cover our realities of today. So we start this public discussion on the legislation as to the Commissioner of Human Rights, and I'm ready to be the initiator. I want this procedure to be more open, more transparent, so we have more options for submission and nominating the candidates for the areas we work in on a daily basis. As an example of openness, within the first days of my work, I had a meeting with the Ukraine-wide Council of Churches. I can tell you that the Ukraine-wide Council of Churches and religious organizations celebrated their 25th, the Russian one celebrated their 25th anniversary. And we first made a joint declaration. It was not only a meeting. Because I don't want to hold meetings for the sake of meetings, because we had a meeting, we had a discussion, and we made a joint declaration to condemn the actions of Russian Federation in Ukraine. And the representatives of all the churches recognized the actions of Russian Federation as terroristic. In the same way, I had a meeting with the representatives of national minorities. We discussed the issue of mobilization in the by Russian Federation in the occupied territories in Ukraine, where we've seen the tendency of elimination of national minorities in Ukraine, which is an additional war crime committed by the higher political command of the Russian Federation. Again, we had a discussion and we made a joint declaration, and almost all the representatives of the national minorities joined this declaration. I'm 100% open to cooperation with the media. The only approach I changed, you will never hear any hype news from me. If I've given you the figures, those are confirmed figures. If I comment any criminal proceedings, so those are the figures which can be confirmed by the Office of Prosecutor General in Ukraine, who takes care of this issue. For me, the key principle is dissemination of information among the Ukrainian citizens and among the international partners, so that they understand that this information is real, that the figures are real. Speed. We are forced to live under conditions of war, so we don't have time for preparation. We didn't have it, actually. That's why I take decisions in the fastest manner possible. So as soon as the Kharkiv region was liberated, I visited Izum and Balaklia. Within 2 days, I was talking to Ukrainian citizens. I've seen personally these torture sites made by Russian servicemen. It was all recorded, and we had it legally recorded, and we had proceedings opened. And I informed all the international partners on a formal level on what was happening there. To me, it's a key principle so that we react quickly to all those challenges that we face. As I said, I'm on a constant contact with civilian hostages and prisoners of war. They are family members. And I receive citizens personally, and my representatives in the working areas do this as well. Within 100 days of operation of our office, we had 15,001 applications. What I changed dramatically in the approaches. My understanding is that the citizens of Ukraine should have an option to contact me directly and in a quick manner. For example, the analysis showed that only 1 in 6 those contacting us via the hotline telephones was able to reach us. So we had the equipment renewed in a way that now 80% of the applicants they receive holistic information about their situation during the telephone contact with the office of the commissioner. The hotline works from 8 o'clock to 2000. Our representatives work from the safe shelters. We work during air raid alerts. We have special venues in the shelters. It's equipped with internet, Wi-Fi, computer machinery, so that the office is able to operate even during air raids. We opened a physical venue, the advisory center of the Commissioner of Human Rights, where people can feel themselves comfortable. Even with their kids, we actually opened the children's room, and we have the same approach here. I made it in Kiev with my team, but the same approach should be implemented in every region of our country. Also, my approach is that if an applicant comes to us with a question, the applicant should receive a direct answer, not a formal reply. Not in the way that we received your application and we forward it further on to other government authorities that take care of them. So if we get an applicant, we apply to all the enforcement agencies, government bodies. We analyze their response, and only after that we inform the applicant citizen what was done. The assessment of our activity is the criteria of renewal, reestablishment of human rights of our citizens. I don't want our institution to be assessed by the number of applications, but rather by the number of the applications where the human rights were established. Here you can see the breakdown, the analysis of the applicants and applications, from whom we're getting the most applications. We implemented the practice not only of analysis, but who applies, from which region, divided, broken down by gender, by age, to identify the systemic issues in our country. My task is, like, I want to remind you, our institution is the spinal cord of the society. So we can see what is there, what issues, what violations are systemic, so that we raise this issue on the level of parliament, of president so that we can eliminate the systemicity of these problems. So we conduct this analysis on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis within the analysis of the overall activities. For me, the main issue is the control of our mandate and analysis of our activity. Our key values is the human centricity. A person is in the focus of our attention. Independence. We understand that we are independent on other government branches, and if we are independent, our mandate is being exercised independently and efficiently. Directness and activeness. We understand that under the conditions of war, we have to find new mechanism of reaction to the challenges faced by us, by our society, by our country. Thank you. This is my report for the first 100 days. I'm 100% open to your questions and to answer all of your questions. And in the end, I want to mention that to me, the cooperation with the mass media is of utmost importance, because you're doing your job, you work on the information front. The way you're covering the information is the huge component, and it's a big merit, and it's a huge contribution to our future victory. Thank you, Mr. Dmytro. Let's proceed to the question, and the first question will be about the situation in Kherson. We're hearing the announcements of the occupants talking about the evacuation, but what we understand in reality, that is the deportation of our people. What are we doing about this now that we understand that it's a global problem from us, because we have the same issues in both Donetsk and Luhansk region, and how can we counter this process? In the same way that we did it before, we recognize that it's forced deportation of our citizen, and it's the crime in progress committed by Russian Federation against our state, against our citizens. So we inform our international partners. We demand them. We demand some significant, substantial reaction from them, and for the time being, we're working through the issue of opening a humanitarian corridor to have the Ukrainian citizens who are in the occupied areas, who have a desire to leave those areas, to move to the areas controlled by the Ukrainian government. That this is how we act. I cannot tell you that we have some confirmations as of now, but in that regard, we already have the process launched. Recently, we had 108 female service women liberated with your participation, with your contribution. What is their condition? What are they telling about? Can you tell us, please? We keep, unfortunately, recording the fact that Ukrainian prisoners of war and civil hostages imprisoned by Russia, who are being kept either in Russian territory or temporarily occupied area. So those conditions does not comply with the Geneva Convention requirements. Unfortunately, we can see that there is insufficient nutrition. The rights of postage is violated. I can refer to the inefficiency of fulfillment of ICRC mandate, who is entitled to do this within their mandate as to Geneva Convention, but they failed to do that, except for exchange. Also, I had a first meeting with the Commissioner of Human Rights of Russian Federation, Moskalkova. I can say that the results of the return of our women is in part thanks to my communication with Moskalkova. For the time being, it's our opportunity to solve the issue of protection of our citizens and to bring them back home. Dear colleagues, please, Ukrinform, Marina Kožuhar, do you have any information with the situation with the Ukrainian refugees in Europe? Do they have necessary help provided to them in different countries? Where is better and where some problems are already arising? Yes, we keep receiving information both through hotline, phone, and also through internet applications. I'm getting this information on a daily basis, and how do I react if it concerns the protection of rights of our citizens? So it's my urgent communication with the Commissioner on Human Rights of the relevant country. For example, I can tell you about Italy. We found systematic problems with our kids because in compliance with the national legislation of Italy, when foster kids are coming who come there to their foster parents or who have foster parents, Ukrainian foster parents, according to the Italian law, they come with no accompaniment, and these children are being fostered by Italian families who are being appointed to them as per Italian legislation. And we had cases when we had the kids taken from their Ukrainian foster parents and given to new Italian foster parents. So they have 5 representatives on human rights around the country and 1 coordinator who coordinates the job of those 5. So I met the coordinator, and we decided that in case the Italian government should get involved, and we agreed that as per Italian legislation they can appoint Italian foster parents to them, but the children are in fact being kept with their Ukrainian foster parents. And now we develop a bilateral agreement with Italy, and where all those issues are raised and processed, and I call for those representatives of the Commissioner for Human Rights to push that issue with the Italian Parliament to have it signed. Also, we want to establish an additional mechanism to react to such cases. As to each country in general, I can say that the desire of every Commissioner of Human Rights of all the European countries is to help Ukraine. We have huge positive examples like Baltic states, like Poland, for example, that I can not only call those commissioners my friends, but they're like family. When I can call them any time of the day and ask the question and receive an answer immediately. By the way, they have 2 commissioners of human rights in Poland for both adults and kids, and I have a very close communication with both of them. And in the same way, I have a very close communication with the commissioners from Baltic countries. With other European commissioners, maybe my communication is not that warm, but it's in place. And I know that within these 100 days in the office, I had to establish my communication with them. So we work very actively in Europe, but we start developing communication with the South America, Africa. We have very good communication with the Australian Commissioner of Human Rights. We're preparing 2 big delegations to delegations of the commissioners of human rights from around the world coming to Ukraine, because one thing is to talk online through a cell phone, and a whole different thing is to bring them here to Ukraine, to have them see. Like, you know, it's better to see once than to hear it 100 times, even from the Commissioner of Human Rights. So in terms of every country, including Belarus and Russian Federation, I clearly understand what's going on, and I know exactly what's the number of Ukrainian citizens in that country, what are the systematic violations, and how to react to them. Mr. Dmytro, on the 17th of October, the ICRC did not come to the borderline to visit our prisoners of war in Olenivka penal colony. What are the further actions of Ukrainian party, and what levers of influence do we have on international level, and what are the alternatives to ICRC? Because some of the government representatives in Ukraine, they made calls to stop the operation of ICRC in Ukraine. Yes, we've seen like everybody getting involved in this process, both the president and the head of presidential office, Andriy Yermak, and me as the commissioner and people's deputies, and we not only commend this on a regular basis, but we want to force them to fulfill their mandate. Why didn't they come? As per their response, they did not arrive because they did not get the security guarantees from Russia. But they did it during their communication with us. The problem of the ICRC, that hiding behind the mask of neutrality, they don't want to call things their names. If Russia doesn't give you permission to go there, if they don't give you security guarantees, we just want them to mouth it. We want them to tell the world that it's Russia who does not let them, is the one who doesn't let them to go to Olenivka, to the places, to the filtration camp, to the places of detention of our prisoners of war and civil hostages, because that's nonsense. We're having concentration camps now in the middle of Europe, and ICRC, who according to the Geneva Convention should not only react to this, but also to make records of this and to announce it, to promulgate this information, to announce it publicly. And in our opinion, it completely complies with the mandate of ICRC as to Geneva Convention, but still they don't do it. However, we keep on working on this. I mentioned this on the borderline, where I arrived together with the people's deputies, that the first time within the 8 years ICRC at least started calling things what they are, like Russian-Ukrainian armed conflict, and that's already a breakthrough. After what they called it crisis in Ukraine, a huge work was done. I was meeting the newly appointed president of ICRC personally in Geneva, and after that, in my opinion, it's a huge breakthrough, which is, however, not enough, and we will keep demanding, including through our international partners, so that International Committee of Red Cross complies with its mandate. But at the same time, we're looking for alternatives. Do we have alternatives? Yes, we do. United Nations organization. Within their structure, they already have a Human Rights Committee, the Supreme Commissioner. Does their mandate allow them coming to the territories of the countries which are in war? Yes, it does. Are they authorized as per their mandate to visit the places of detention of prisoners of war? Yes, it does. In my opinion, it's my personal opinion, that understanding that Ukraine raised the degree, so to say, the degree, the extent of visits of these places of detention of prisoners of war detained by Russia, who establishes these concentration camps and doesn't let anybody in there. In response to that, Russian Federation implemented the martial law, and this is the cover to refuse all the international organizations so that they can say, oh, we want so much to receive you, but the martial law is on, let's wait for it to be over, and then please come and see whatever you want to see. Also, we don't want the missions to be created just for the sake of being created. For example, the UN mission for Olenivka situation. Time has passed, but they never arrived to Ukraine. We don't only draw their attention, we announce it publicly. So I refuse the practice of clandestine, not public communication. There's a war raging on in Ukraine, so we can forget about this diplomatic language of personal communication, but without bringing it into the public field. So that, like, to hide our problems from the public. This is the direct speech of one of the representatives of the international organization. So I tell them directly, if I, as the Commissioner for Human Rights, if I declare about some violations, about some systemic problems, if I don't see reaction from you, I will tell about this to Ukrainian society, and I will tell the international community about the absence of such reaction. Yeah, you can interpret it in any way, even as the pressure on international organizations, but if you don't want to do your work in a different way, you leave me with no choice, because I'm talking not about myself, I'm talking about the Ukrainian population who are being killed, raped, tortured on a daily basis, who are being forcibly deported. If you want to act as if nothing happens, so you were acting the same way previous 8 years, and also your deep concern is what led the aggressor to this action, to what happened now. And now it's been more than 8 months when the Russian Federation wants to capture all the territory of Ukraine. This is the collective liability, including ICRC. Another question, please. Valentin Bannych Vesti.ua. The announcement on the creation of the advisory board, is there any effect of your contacts with the Russian commissioner? What were the results? What kind of person is she, and do you have her personal number? Yes, as to the advisory board, we set forth all the provisions on the advisory board. It's an open information. The criteria for selection are very simple. I will take the decision together with other people working in the civil sector, with whom I trust, who works in the civil sector for a long time. So somebody from the human rights protection sector works with me now, somebody as advisor. For me, the key criteria are experience, the provable results of work, and the desire to expand the existing mechanism of fighting and establishing new mechanisms which would enable us to protect the human rights of our citizens both in Ukraine and abroad. As to your second question, look, with all due respect, I understand the mood of the society. I understand that somebody directly criticized me for my meeting. And at the same time, in Facebook, half of the comments who condemned me for this meeting, and another half of the comments they were condemning me for not bringing back all the hostages and all the prisoners of war. So I have a rhetoric question to the society of Ukraine. Well, what do you expect more from me? Like a public condemnation of somebody going to personalities? Or was I fulfilling my mandates, returning the prisoners of war and civilian hostages and looking for mechanisms on how to protect their human rights even in Russian Federation? So why I told you it's a rhetoric question, because nobody is going to answer. We're not going to question anybody about that. But for me personally, I found this answer. I will do everything that I can to return everybody, to protect everybody. If for this I will need to have meetings, yes, I will have these meetings. If I will have to call directly to the cell phone, yes, I will do that. If I would have seen that it makes no sense, I would have tell openly to the society that I attempted to establish communication, but I failed and there is no contact. If you see on examples that this communication results in something significant, to me it's important that the personal meeting should happen during something substantial. This is why this meeting was taking place during the return of our girls. Yes, I have her personal number, her personal cell phone number. Another question, Mr. Dmytro. The forced mobilization. We understand that yesterday's decision taken by Putin, it will only deepen this problem. And most likely the Ukrainians who found themselves in the occupied territories, they will be forcibly mobilized. Do you already record these cases? Yes, we record these cases. It happens in all regions. It started in Luhansk and Donetsk regions. Now the same process is being launched in Kherson Oblast and Crimea. Again, in Crimea, now we have the problems that the first draft notices were sent to the representatives of Tatar national minority, notwithstanding their medical condition. And we can see the signs of preparation of forced mobilization in Zaporizhia region. So we talk to everybody, we tell everybody, you always have choice. No matter the situation, you have choice. You can try to leave, first of all. Second, don't accept the draft notice. Yes, in Russia it leads to penalty. Third, you receive the draft notice and you're looking for an opportunity to surrender. For example, you can do it through a chat bot. It's made by the coordination headquarters, which comprises us as well. If you surrender, we make a legal investigation, and we guarantee if you didn't take part in any war crimes, if you didn't take part in warfare, and we can legally record the fact of your forced mobilization, you are being exempt of legal punishment. In my opinion, Ukraine as a state showed multiplicity of options to keep a person alive and to be kept in a safe place. So if you receive a draft notice and you decided that it's better to join the Russian army and surrender, we have everything ready for you. You got phone numbers, you have chat bots. it's all within the legal framework. Please surrender. And the last question, please. Good afternoon. As to our prisoners of war and the conditions of their detention, what's the number of places of their detention? And maybe you have figures, maybe you have the numbers of the total number of those detained. I can comment everything that will not worsen the situation. But believe me, it's such a complicated work that even every word said in cautious manner can worsen the situation. What I can tell you, we know the numbers, we know the conditions, we know the number of people, we know the number of places and the location of those places of detention. As to Geneva Conventions, the conditions are terrible. We know that there is no enough medical aid. The basic rights of the prisoners of war and civil hostages, their basic rights are violated, and we do everything possible to get them back, but we cannot tell you the numbers. Mr. Dmytro, thank you for this comprehensive conversation. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your interest to this important topic. I will remind you, we had Dmytro Lubinets, the Commissioner of Human Rights. Everything will be Ukraine. We keep working for our victory. Thank you.